And I'm Rupert Bell, heading towards spring. Yippee! But I'll have also the news on the Prince and Princess of Wales. And once again, they haven't been quiet.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we're diving into the latest royal drama, Meghan Markle's new lifestyle brand, American Riviera Orchard.
All right. So, Rupert, first of all, I have to tell you, kind of off topic,
Mm.
and definitely not when it comes to the Wales family. Oh, actually, it does involve the Wales family a bit because, according to Prince Harry, they were major Suits fans. I have to tell you, I watched the first episode of Suits LA here in the States, and there's all sorts of talk about could Meghan make a guest appearance? I hope not, because this show is so good. And according to Prince Harry, Prince William and Catherine were fans of the original that was shot in Toronto that starred Meghan Markle. If William and Catherine liked the original Suits, they are going to love Suits LA. But I guess my question to you would be A, do you think that Meghan Markle would lower herself to a guest appearance on Suits LA? And B, do you think that William and Catherine were really fans of Suits and Meghan Markle before Prince Harry started dating her? Because I've always not believed that.
I couldn't possibly comment. I wouldn't know if they were fans, but it's an easy thing for Harry to say
Right.
whether they were or not, because obviously the Prince and Princess of Wales won't actually admit whether they were or won't, because we don't tend to hear too much about it. And I don't think in the present climate they will come forward with an opinion about Suits. What I will say, I can't say I've seen the episode of the program that you've had. It's past my radar, but obviously it will be interesting. I can't see her making an appearance in it, and if she does, if it's a sort of complete rebrand, well, she will want to come in with a starring role. She's not going to want a 2 minute cameo just for a bit of publicity. She'll want to prove that she's back in the big time. But at the moment, I think, she seems to have more than enough ensuring that she can get a few products in a shop, rather than worrying about appearing in a reboot of a series that, yes, she was part of, and a series that was reasonably successful on a global scale. But I think she's got more important things to be worrying about. And if she's serious about as ever, then as ever, she should be concentrating on.
Now, this was supposed to be her big comeback, but honestly, it's looking like a royal mess. First off, the Netflix merch delay.
Good advice, Rupert. All right, so I don't know if you saw this really sweet video that was trending over the last few days, but it's Prince William. He traveled to Liverpool last month to meet community groups working to support young people in the area. And there was this adorable student named Mohammed who asks Prince William, "Are you the king?" And he says, "Hello, are you the king?" And Prince William says, "No, I'm not. I'm his son." And I just thought it was the sweetest exchange. Of course, then you see the picture that they take together and you see Prince William saying cheese and your heart explodes. But there's always this gossip, even throughout the cancer battles, about attention going on, and this battle for power between Prince William and the king. And to me, I mean, it's something we whisper about, but in the royal reporter community. Like, did you see this report? To me, it was one of those moments where I really felt confident that Prince William respects and loves his father. It was just so instinctual and so respectful, and it was a kind moment that was void of any sort of arrogance or entitlement.
I think what it does show is that Prince William is very good with people when he's out and about. He knows his shtick, basically. And if someone does it, he's not going to suddenly sound all grumpy when he's saying that. What he's going to do is that boy is a wide-eyed innocence. He's not quite sure probably what's going on. Who is this guy who's the center of attention? And probably thinks, well, he must be the king. He's very important. But actually, it shows his naturalness. Now, you talk about a rift. They're always talking about that Prince Charles, now king, always didn't necessarily agree with what his mother was doing at various stages. I think what it shows at the moment, and obviously with all the illnesses and everything going around, what we're going to see from Prince William is he's not going to be rocking the boat. because he knows his father's got enough issues to worry about. So I actually think that at the moment, William, as we've seen, wants to do things his own way. He's got his own interests, and he's very passionate about those, whether it be the Earthshot and other issues as well. But I think he's not going to be rocking the boat, because he knows his dad is around doing the job, and he's charging around the country. What he's been looking at a whole lot of diggers today, I think, as we speak, and watching a lot of JCB diggers the King has been at, and has been going around the country and trying to have an active role, just as Prince William is. Look, last week I think he was sunning himself on the island of Mustique, much loved by his aunt back in the day. No, great aunt, I should say, back in the day, when she sort of made it the holiday hotspot. It's a private island, so hopefully they have come back from that suitably refreshed, and have had a nice winter break on the island of Mustique, which is a private island, so there would have been no prying eyes.
Seriously, this was supposed to be a cornerstone of her brand, and they can't even get that right? And to top it all off, there are rumours that WME, one of the biggest talent agencies, could be backing away.
Right, let's stay on the topic of Prince William, because 60 Minutes, Australia scored a touchdown, as we'd say in the States, with a interview that I never thought I'd see coming with Jason Knopf, an incredible, a very valuable asset to the Duke and Duchess of Cambridge at the time, because I do believe did he leave before they became the Prince and Princess of Wales? Perhaps.
He left. He's left. It was 2 or 3 years ago, but he's still been working on behalf
With the
of the royal
Earthshot,
family.
yes.
But in terms of, but of course, most famously, obviously was working with the Sussexes and helped with the wedding. So he was the one who was at the heart of the bullying allegations. And I have to say, you're absolutely right. This is a touchdown with Super Bowl proportions for the program in Australia, that they've come up with that. So I have to say, fair play to them. But actually, I think it was a very good documentary, and I'm quite convinced, and I think it would have not been done without the full permission of the Prince and Princess of Wales, because he's obviously a very good friend of theirs, and has worked very closely with them. And I don't think he's the sort of person who would just blindly going in to doing something like that. And it's quite interesting that it's in Australia that this program is coming out, when there's always this talk of the Republican movement. Yet here we have a full-blown documentary singing the praises, in a way, of the Prince and Princess of Wales, who obviously in time will become the head of state of Australia.
Absolutely. So what was your biggest takeaway from that interview? If anybody's curious, it's available on YouTube. I'd say my biggest takeaway was his suggestion, and this is involving the Sussexes. He says, and I think he's also hinting at the Kate conspiracies, but he says specifically that it's almost impossible to control a brand today with the way that social media is. The reason why people love Prince William and Catherine is their authenticity, because you cannot stage and fake and control a brand the way you could 20 years ago. That to me was almost a sly dig at the Sussexes. Did you interpret that in any way?
I think there was quite enough of sort of veiled implications that it was quite tough working for them, because one of the accusations always has been at the Duke and Duchess of Sussex, particularly the Duchess of Sussex, that she doesn't take advice very readily and wants to do things her own way. And we're seeing it all the time, the sort of talk that's coming out even recently. So I think that was the biggest problem. And then, of course, we had the big issue with obviously the bullying allegations. And she was at the, that was a really difficult thing. And he was the one who put his head above the parapet, protecting members of the royal household who he reported that they were finding Meghan particularly difficult to deal with. And, I've heard, many of us have all heard the rumours and what was allegedly going on, and how impossible she was at times to work with, and he was at the heart of that. Then obviously he goes and jumps ships and works for the Cambridges before they became the Waleses. So I think we quite clearly know where his loyalties lie, and this program definitely was designed to promote. And actually, there was that story about how he dropped the news of the birth of one of the children on the street, and he was panicked that it was going to break before, because someone would have picked up that piece of paper because it had the press release chapter and verse. And then he says, well, thank God for that. I got away with one there. But that was a sort of nice background story of the difficulties at times of being a press secretary on behalf of the royal family. I think, as they say, he got away with one there, rather than being dropped from a great height. If that story had broken a little bit earlier, if it had fallen into the wrong hands. But overall, I have to say he came across as a very level-headed man who was definitely know which side his loyalties lie.
Ouch, let's talk about the name American Riviera Orchard. Sounds more Santa Barbara than Sandringham, right? But the weirdness doesn't stop there. The tagline, as ever, has everyone scratching their heads.
That's true. A very likable character. Meghan does not paint him as such in the Netflix series where she's, irate over the fact that he is collaborating or contributing in any way to that lawsuit, when it came to her forgetting that she collaborated with Omid Scobie and Carolyn Durant on Finding Freedom. Let's talk briefly about the piece in the 60 Minutes episode where Jason opens up about how devastated Prince William was on the other end of the phone when he called him to tell him that the Princess of Wales had cancer. It really tugged at my heartstrings. I don't know if it did the same for you, but it's hard to hear that he was going. What they did is they did a really good job of explaining all the pressure on Prince William at that time. And as a royal reporter that was working at that time, I felt a lot of guilt that, even if we accept the assignment and we had to sit on TV and contemplate, where is Catherine? Probably less so for you because the United States is so, doesn't have the same laws about health that you do. But I did feel some real sympathy for Prince William.
I think we have sympathy for all of them, particularly the sort of Nadia, I suppose, and which forced her, the Princess of Wales, to make that statement was obviously seeing her walking out of the Windsor farm shop, walking home, having had a quiet afternoon, sneaking on a Saturday afternoon like so many families, trying to have a normal life, just slipping quietly to the local farm shop. But then obviously everything broke out after that. And then she had to do that video, sort of saying what was coming out. I think it was hard because there was so much speculation. But more importantly, what it did say is the human side, because as Jason Kanoff said in that documentary, it's basically, he's having to deal with the double whammy of his father's diagnosed with cancer and his wife diagnosed with cancer. And with all the speculation that goes on in the modern social media world and the sort of voracious sort of speculation that was out there, it was very hard. And I think it would have been really hard because his primary aim would have been to protect his wife. And one of the things they were also worried about, to make sure that the children were fully aware and they had spoken to them. And they were just always trying to protect the children because we all know families, devastating if a parent has to talk to their children, probably at any age that they've got cancer. It's not easy, and it creates, you want to always control the narrative. Now, that's something that all of us outside the royal family and probably major celebrities can manage to do. But overall, I think it showed the real human side, and actually the viciousness at times of people wanting to speculate and saying, well, there's nothing wrong with her, and all this sort of garbage that was put out at the time. And I think Jason Kanoff in that documentary just saying that he felt for his friend ultimately. And it goes back to my original point. You know which side he's on.
Is it a signature? A sign-off? Or just a half-baked attempt at luxury? One thing's clear. No one knows what this brand actually sells. Jams, olive oil, silver spoons? As ever, it's confusing.
While Meghan is constantly trying and failing to prove herself.
Yeah, his quote was, "It was awful, absolutely awful. It's the lowest I've ever seen it," which breaks your heart. Before we move on, can we talk about his reaction to questions regarding the Duke and Duchess of Sussex, Harry and Meghan? I feel strongly that when you secure an interview like Jason Kanoff, Jason has the power to tell you what is off limits. And I think he likely allowed that Harry and Meghan question, or the multiple Harry and Meghan questions, perhaps put his foot down as to how far they went down the rabbit hole with them. But it certainly seemed like this was such a good get for 60 Minutes that they might play ball with something like that. I thought his answer when he would talked about how he wished their young, beautiful family. I can't remember exactly how he worded it, but he said something like, I wish their family well. Um, oh, he said, I wish them absolutely all the best with their lovely family. To me, it reminded me of something we say in the South, which is bless your heart, which is it sounds nice, but it's kind of like dismissive. Did you get that sense at all? Or do you think that he was coming from a place of sincerity? And it's not a critique of him. I related to him in that moment.
I don't think. I think he's probably just saying he's wishing them well. What human being is not going to say that? I know he's had to ride out the storm and criticism and deal with it, but actually shows he's rising above the parapet and
Mm-hmm.
has not been goaded into making a riposte to some of the things that came at him, as you alluded to already. How Meghan perhaps saw him as the villain of the piece, but he's not responded in kind to that. And so by wishing them well, he's actually shown, well, bit of gentlemanly behavior. And I think that's very important because it's trying to take the steam out of the situation. Because if he'd gone and said something, and there had been some, Jason Knopf slags off Meghan and Harry, then they got the story. But actually, it's supposed to be about the Prince and Princess of Wales and their future role within Australia. And actually, overridingly, that seems to be the impression, and that he's been able to control that narrative, although quite at any stage he was bound to be asked about something because he was, as we know, he helped organise the wedding, and as he said, it was a reasonably happy time. It just unravelled a bit quickly afterwards.
Meghan Markle's American Riviera orchard was meant to be her big comeback, but instead it's raising serious questions about her team, her strategy, and her ability to connect with the public. So what do you think? Will this brand survive, or is it already done? Like this video if you think the public deserves better than buzzwords and soft launches. And don't forget to subscribe for weekly breakdowns of celebrity spin, royal reality and media mayhem. Thanks for watching. See you next time with more truth, fewer PR filters.